Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155 from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championships, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championships, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Pawan, and today we're talking about UFC 248, which on paper seemed like a great card and did not disappoint. Capped off with the undisputed middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, defending his title against the Soldier of God, Yoel Romero. We're also going to talk about the co-main event between the women's strawweight champion, Weili Zhang, defending her title against the former champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And finish off talking about the rest of the card, Sugar Shane O'Malley, Beneil Dariush, and more MMA and UFC news. So let's get right into it. Israel versus Romero. I was really excited to see Israel's walkout. I was expecting something just like the Whittaker fight, a choreographed dance scene. It was a great entrance against Whittaker, but we didn't get something as elaborate. Nonetheless, still probably one of the best walkouts for the night. Came out walking on flower petals. If you've ever seen the movie Coming to America, it was a lot like that. The women were dressed in similar outfits. But there was nothing. Once they came up to the gate, ready to walk in, Israel was focused, locked in. Looked kind of stiff, kind of scared. As much as I had Israel winning at the walkouts, I thought maybe Romero was going to take this. Israel seemed like he was focused, but a little not as usual, a little off his game. Romero, came out just as usual, relaxed, ready to go, nothing special. And then the first round starts, and Yoel just stands there, really stiff. And I saw a meme on the internet about how it looked like it was one of the UFC games with a controller out of battery, and it really did look like that. Romero did a nice little Ali shuffle and got the crowd involved. But that's when the fight really got started. First round, a little lackluster, more of a feeling out process, a lot of feints. Only 3 strikes landed for Izzy, 4 strikes landed for Romero. Romero landing the much bigger shots. Israel with the low kicks, right to the right lead leg of Romero, switching stances a lot. And eventually Romero counters a left hook with his overhand left. That's what stung. Kind of hurt, not really hurt, but let Israel Adesanya know that this was going to be a tough night, that the power behind Romero's punches is very real. Romero also faked a flying knee, set up a jumping roundhouse kick to the body. Israel eventually was pawing at his eye, which I think was from the overhand right. Started a little bit of swelling, didn't do much, but you could see Romero was really setting the pace for this fight. Slow-paced fight, not a war like we saw earlier with the women's fight. Moving on to round 2, that's when Israel came out a little bit more offensive, more aggressive, walking forward a lot more. Started throwing more front kicks to the body, more teeps, continuing with the leg kicks. And then the same counter overhand left landed for Yoel. Stunning Izzy, pushing him back almost all the way across the cage. But not too much was done with it. Romero's outside leg kicks and pressure, and almost got a knockdown at the ending. It could be a knockdown, it could be a slip, hard to tell with the camera angle. But pushed him all the way back to the fence, started to unleash his hands a little bit, but then put his hands up and walked back as if to say, let's go back to the middle of the ring, which was confusing to say the least. With Romero, he's so dangerous when he has his opponents up against the fence. He has so many options to let his hands go with powerful shots, let his legs go powerful kicks, or to use his wrestling. He was a silver medalist in the Olympics for freestyle wrestling and doesn't really use his wrestling much. He likes to stand and bang. He likes to throw his hands. That was very confusing, especially against someone like Israel who needs a lot of space around him to be able to move, uses elusive footwork. For Yoel to let him off the fence, that was very confusing. Not something he should have done. He should have capitalized more off something like that. Also, I noticed Yoel's feints are a lot like Anderson Silva, where it's not really feinting a punch, feinting a jab, feinting a kick. It's more just random hand movement to keep his opponent at guard, just never knowing what's going to come. And when you have power like Yoel, you can do that and scare a lot of your opponents. Moving on to round 3, Romero ducks a beautiful high kick. For at the age of 42, almost 43, for Romero to have such good reflexes is amazing. You can see he really hasn't lost a step from when he started. He's still just as good. Israel started adding up with the leg kicks. This is where we saw Yoel's lead leg, his right leg, start to swell up and give him a little bit of issues. He wasn't really walking funny. He wasn't not using his leg, but the damage was starting to accumulate. It was starting to build up. There was a lot of swelling. But Romero didn't seem too bothered by it. Israel kept using his body kicks, opening up for a head kick later. Same thing with the leg kicks, opening up for a leg kick later in the rounds. This is where Israel really started to take over in the fight, using his reach advantage, staying far away from Yoel's hands, using his legs just to keep him at bay. At the end, he clips him with a high kick, clips Romero with a high kick. Doesn't really land cleanly, just slightly, like I said, clips him. Not too much damage done, but it seemed like that's where the fight was going, with Israel landing low kicks, eventually setting up for a high kick knockout later in the rounds. Round ends, round 4 begins, and the referee tells them that they need to have more action, need to give the judges something to score. Judges obviously had something to score, probably because of the high-paced fight before this, the strawweight championship fight. Everyone was kind of expecting more, but this was more of a high-level chess match than anything else. These are big guys. These are 185-pounders. Yoel probably walking around at over 200 pounds easily. A single punch from either one of these guys could end the night. A high kick from Israel Adesanya could end the night. So these guys are not taking huge chances. These guys are not going to take the risk of getting knocked out for something insignificant. So it's confusing. I hate seeing referees jump in anyway. The fight is a fight. As long as neither one of them are getting a point taken off for timidity, it's fine. Let them fight. Let them fight the way they are fighting. But those words probably resonated with Yoel, who came out a lot more aggressive in this round. But Israel stuck to the game plan. He was very consistent with the leg kicks, trying to slow Yoel down. Eventually, Romero starts to back off the pressure, lets his foot off the gas because of those leg kicks. And Israel inadvertently gets an eye poke, who's kind of just reaching out, trying to frame off of Romero with his hands open, leads to a small eye poke. Nothing really significant. But once they're back, Romero goes right back at it again, gets a takedown, doesn't do anything with it. Israel is back up quick. And this was what a lot of people wanted to see with Israel versus Romero. How well will Israel deal with the wrestling of someone like Romero? Israel's a great kickboxer, but we've never seen him up against someone who's a great wrestler. Even though Romero doesn't use his wrestling a lot, he is someone who can easily hurt you and get you down and keep you there. He wasn't able to keep Israel down. Tries a second takedown attempt in this round also, gets nothing. Israel sprawls and gets away. And right at the ending, Israel throws a question mark kick that Romero sees and ducks right under, which was beautiful. Like I said, at 42 years of age, having that reaction, being able to read Israel, faking a front kick, going around over the top, and being able to duck, that was amazing. Going into the 5th round, it was easy to see that Romero was starting to lose the fight. Even though it could be 2-2 going into the 5th, it seemed like the momentum was on Israel's side. Yoel did come out more aggressive, but he didn't come out with a sense of urgency, not anything like he should have. Nothing where he was trying to end the fight or decisively take a victory over Israel. He was looking for more overhand lefts to land that big shot to put Israel out. Israel again showing great takedown defense in the clinch. Romero seemed to get frustrated near the end of the round, just chasing Israel. Israel was jumping around, moving elusively, pot-shotting Romero all night long. Romero started throwing his hands up as if to say, "Why aren't you fighting me? Come fight me." That was not going to happen. There's no way that Israel was going to get in there, step in front of Romero, and just stand and bang with him. There's no point to, and it's not part of the game plan. No one's game plan should have that against Romero, besides Paulo Costa maybe, but we'll get onto that. At the ending, Romero ducks a cartwheel kick, more of a dance move by Israel than a technical kick. But it was great to see Romero duck it again. Romero was just ducking high kicks left and right. He was great at avoiding those, but his leg was chewed up. At the ending, they both thought they won. Romero more than Israel gets into his face, starts screaming, which was confusing. I thought there'd be a little bit more show of respect at the ending, which there was, but it was fun to see. It was fun to see. Maybe the most aggression in the fight overall. But then Israel wins a unanimous decision, 48-47, 48-47, 49-46. No arguments there. It was quite obvious that Romero wasn't doing enough. Romero was okay with just doing just enough to be in the fight. With that being said, we'll take a small break, and when we're back, we'll talk about the future for both these fighters. I'll talk about the co-main event and more news around the UFC. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and we're back. We just recapped the Israel Adesanya title defense against Yoel Romero at UFC 248. And now what's next for these guys? For Yoel, it's a lot more confusing. So we'll start off with that. Yoel says he wants to fight till past the age of 50, looking at people like Bernard Hopkins. For inspiration, Bernard Hopkins, a boxer, which is way different than MMA. Especially with the age. A lot of boxers can go into the later age and keep going, especially people like Bernard Hopkins, who are so defensively good, so good at not taking damage. Yoel doesn't seem like he's taken a lot of damage, but he's been in there with a few wars, with the two fights against Whitaker, against Paulo Costa. But again, he showed that at 40, almost 43, he still has what it takes to be a number one contender, to be up there. A lot of people did think that this was Yoel's last chance to fight for the title, which it very well could have been, but stranger things have happened. I don't mark out Yoel fighting for the title again. It's very possible, but not in the near future. He did end off the fight at the ending, telling Israel his signature catchphrase, "I see you soon, boy." I think he really expects a rematch, which I don't think is happening, at least not anytime in the near future. I'd like to see Romero fight Darren Till. Darren Till has been clear that he'll fight anyone except for Romero, but that's a fight I really want to see, mainly because Darren Till is saying that he'll fight anyone except for Romero. Darren Till is coming off a win against Kelvin Gastelum, and needs to fight someone higher ranked, move up in the weight class. And Romero ranked at number 3 would be a great fight to see. I don't see many other fights for Yoel. Maybe Jack Emerson, Maybe Gastelum, because Gastelum is coming off a loss as well. Romero coming off a few losses now. But Romero versus Darren Till seems like a fight to make right now. As far as Israel Adesanya, we already know what's next. Paulo Costa. That's who he should have been fighting if it wasn't for a bicep injury where Paulo Costa had to go into surgery for. But that is the fight to make. Paulo Costa was there. He was shouting at Romero, at Israel, saying what a boring fight, that he would not engage in something like that. He would be pressing forward, trying to knock out Israel Adesanya. That's a very interesting fight. They're both undefeated, and as the saying goes, someone's O has got to go. Two undefeated fighters, one person will walk out undefeated, one person will walk out with their first loss, unless it's a draw, of course, which I don't see happening. But with this fight, Israel Adesanya seems to be very hard to defeat. Seems like he has a great game plan for no matter what type of fighter he's fighting. With Paulo Costa, I don't think he'll have to worry about too many takedowns, mainly just the power of Paulo Costa. But I think he can manage. I think if he was able to stay away from Yoel's power, he'll be able to do a very similar fight plan against Paulo Costa. Low kicks, teeps to the body, straight kicks, eventually setting up for later round high kicks, using his natural size reach advantage against Paulo. Paulo is again a great fighter, undefeated. Never seen him in a 5-round fight. This would be the very first 5-round fight he would be in. And it'll answer a lot of questions about Paulo Costa. Whether he has the gas tank to go 5 rounds, whether he can carry his power for the later championship rounds. But also he has that one punch power to put someone out if he needs to. Knock him out, ground and pound, and finish the fight. He could easily put Israel's lights out, not completely, but again, knock him down, apply pressure, and bang with him. I said I don't see Paulo Costa winning that fight. In the 3-round fight he had against Yoel, even though he won that very close fight, it seemed like he tired off near the ending. He didn't seem to have that 5-round gas tank, but that's, again, something there's only one way to find out, and that's with that fight happening. I have no doubt in my mind that's the fight that's going to happen. Paulo Costa is ranked number 1 in the middleweight division. He should have been fighting Romero, but again, a bicep injury is what stopped him. Again, going back to Yoel for a bit, where does Yoel really go from here? Does he keep fighting top 10 opponents, trying to work his way back to a fight with the champion, who it seems like Israel Adesanya will be a long-reigning champion? If you look at him, he kind of has not all the accolades, but all the advantages John Jones had at light heavyweight, at being the bigger guy, at being the guy with more range, being the guy that's been able to stay out, use a lot of leg kicks like John Jones. We'll, of course, talk about the John Jones versus Israel possibility later tonight, but we get to see that Israel is definitely a great fighter, someone who could be a long-reigning champ if he could have that Anderson Silva type run. He has a lot of Anderson Silva type moves with his elusiveness, head movement, his footwork. But will he be able to keep a reign like Anderson Silva? He's beaten Whitaker, he's beaten Romero. Second title defense against an undefeated Paulo Costa. It's very, very possible he could be this generation's Anderson Silva. We know he defeated Anderson Silva, which is a great accomplishment. Of course, Anderson Silva, older, nowhere near his prime, not anything like he used to be. But again, it's something we'll definitely have to project for the future. Besides that, the middleweight bracket, the middleweight weight class, seems to be stacked with great fighters. I can see Kevin Gastelum working his way back. Darren Till, who beat Kevin Gastelum, can get up there. Paulo Costa, of course, Robert Whitaker, who got knocked down in the first round, knocked out in the second against Israel Adesanya, could work his way back up to a rematch. He was also a champion at that point. That's who Israel beat to become undisputed. It's a lot of great fighters, in a stacked division. With that being said, we'll take another small break. When we're back, we'll talk about the fight of the night, the Women's Strawweight Championship, Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and more about MMA and UFC news.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we're back. We just talked about the Yoel versus Israel Adesanya fight and the future of the middleweight division. And moving on to the fight of the night, a complete war between Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Weili Zhang. This was an outstanding fight. Easily the fight of the night. Probably the best fight in the women's MMA period. And possibly one of the greatest fights, period. This was a complete war. Former champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk with 5 title defenses before, coming back to face Weili Zhang, not undefeated. Only loss she took was their very first fight, but someone who looks like they'll be undefeated in the foreseen future. Joanna Jędrzejczyk with a kickboxing background, great on the feet, great striking. Against Michelle Waterson, we've seen that she had really good grappling defense, being able to stuff takedowns, being able to avoid a rear naked choke with Michelle on her back. This was another place we thought, or at least, I thought, that Joanna Jędrzejczyk might have troubles with the Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang has a few submission victories under her belt, a lot more accomplished grappler than Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and also a lot more powerful with the hands. Somehow it was similar to the Romero versus Adesanya fight, with one more powerful Weili Zhang versus a more precision type striker, a more volume striker like Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So getting right into it, first round, Joanna Jędrzejczyk starting off with outside leg kicks, throwing combos, ending her combos with kicks. Really great work. But Weili just looks so much more powerful. She was moving forward, didn't seem to be affected by any hit she had taken from Joanna. She was just not afraid of Joanna's power. She was walking forward, throwing punches, throwing a lot of feints, trying to catch and counter Joanna. First round, very competitive, pretty clearly to Weili Zhang, but again, it could have gone either way. Moving forward to round 2, Joanna comes out a lot more aggressive, a lot better, moving forward, letting her hands go more, again, ending her combos with kicks. Weili Zhang actually starts off and takes a shot, not a really shot, but just gets into the clinch with Joanna, and this is where we saw Joanna do great in the clinch, land elbows, land knees to the body. I expected Weili to do a lot better in the clinches. She did throw the elbows, similar elbows that she got Jessica Andrade with. Didn't really end the fight, but did hurt Joanna Jędrzejczyk with a strong right hand. Again, going for a takedown, gets the takedown. Joanna Jędrzejczyk up real quick, didn't take any damage, didn't really get anything with the takedown, but did get the takedown nonetheless. Joanna Jędrzejczyk landing great leg kicks, setting up a high kick, and clips Weili right on the chin with the end of her feet, kind of just like the knuckles of the feet, right on the jaw, right at the end of the round. And this is where it really started picking up. There were probably a few hundred, maybe almost 200 strikes into the fight already. These girls were going at it. Nothing but respect. These women were just going. No slowing down. Going into the third fight, Joanna comes out, switching stances a bit southpaw, moving forward again, applying more pressure, setting up high kicks with a lot of low kicks, ending her combos with kicks, starting a lot of combos with kicks. Weili Zhang, a lot more forward pressure, more takedown attempts, could not get the takedown. This was great to see for Joanna. You can see that she's an extremely good striker, extremely accomplished striker with a kickboxing background, with a great takedown defense to make sure she can keep the fight standing. With Weili, again, powerful shots. Round 3, she seemed to kind of slow down a bit, but still okay, still in the fight. Both of them were in the fight at every point of the fight. No way either one of them were really backing down. This is when we started seeing a little bit of swelling around Joanna's forehead. It seemed to be just the right side at first, a small hematoma, but that just started to pick up. Round 4, championship rounds. We've seen Joanna in so many championship rounds. We know she has the cardio, she has the gas tank to go. This was the first time for Weili Zhang. Wanted to see if she could keep her power at the later rounds, if she had the stamina to keep going in the later rounds. She definitely proved she did. She started slowing down at first, at the beginning, and it seemed like an all-out war. Later in the fourth round, Weili started to get a second wind, take over the rest of the round, get into clinch, good clinch work again. But again, Joanna Jędrzejczyk landing great elbows in the clinch. She did a lot of good work in the clinch. I expected Weili to do a lot better in the clinch than Joanna, but again, Joanna's a veteran. 5 title defenses under her belt. There's nothing she hasn't seen. And for Weili, this was a great experience. Round 5, more of the same, an all-out war. Going back and forth. At this point, Joanna's forehead looked crazy. It was swollen in every way, in every which direction. I believe Joe Rogan said this. I was thinking this right before he said it, that she was starting to look like Frankenstein. If you've seen any of the Frankenstein movies or anything to do with Frankenstein, you know he has that big square forehead with the 2 bolts coming out. Besides the bolts, Joanna was looking like Frankenstein. She was unrecognizable. But nonetheless, she was still pushing forward. She was still fighting strong, still going to war. At the end of the 5 round, I really didn't know who was going to win. It was really a pick'em fight. Could go either way. Eventually, with the scorecard, a split decision victory to Weili Zhang, who got that victory not very decisive. Again, it could have gone either way, split decision, but an all-out war. Once the fight was over, literally at the end of the 5th round, right when the bell rings, Joanna Jędrzejczyk puts her hands down onto her knees, completely exhausted, her face completely battered. Weili seemed excited, thinking she had won. Joanna thought she had won, clearly. Went to the judges, and a hard-fought victory for Weili. Joanna Jędrzejczyk took the loss very graciously. We've seen her be kind of sour, to say the least, with her losses to Rose Namajunas. The first fight with the knockout loss, the second decision. She seemed to disagree with it. She seemed angry about it. This time, it seems like she's grown not just as a fighter but as a person. Took the loss graciously. Thanked her teammates, thanked her friends and family for coming out. Didn't really call for a rematch, but that's something I'm definitely sure we need to see in the future. Especially with the strawweight division, there's a few fighters in the top of the division, the top 4, the top 5 that we can see fighting for the belt. But we'll get more into that in a bit. Overall, absolutely amazing fight. Absolutely amazing. Like I said, fight of the night, they won that. Possibly the greatest, not possibly, but almost for sure, the greatest women's championship fight for strawweight for sure. An absolute war. I believe over 600 strikes between the two of them. It was beautiful to watch. It was beautiful carnage. Beautiful aggression, right? With that being said, again, we'll take a small little break. When we get back, we'll talk about the future of the strawweight division and more about the future of Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Weili Zhang. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we're back. We just recap Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang, and now to talk more about the future for both these fighters. I think it's hard to see anything besides a rematch for these girls. These girls put an absolute war, an absolute great fight, close fight, split decision, 48-47, 48-47, 48-47. 2 judges for Weili Zhang, 1 judge for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I personally thought Joanna had a slight edge, slightly won, but no dispute with the judgment. But Joanna clearly established herself as the number 1 contender. We have other fighters that could come in. I don't see a Jessica Andrade rematch with Weili Zhang happening anytime soon. She had a very decisive knockout victory against Jessica. Rose Namajunas could come back, coming off a loss against Jessica Andrade. Come back for a title fight, but I also don't see that happening. Besides that, really the only fight that makes sense is a rematch, especially in such a great fight. I could see a rematch happening not anytime soon. Joanna needs some time to recover, needs some time to let her head heal. She took a lot of damage in that fight. Seems like she got the worst of the damage when it comes to the fight, even though Weili Zhang was taking a lot of damage. The power advantage was clearly in Weili Zhang's side, and she clearly did a lot more damage, especially to the forehead. Like I said, it was completely swollen up, looking like Frankenstein, looking like the monster from Goonies, if you've seen that. But no other fight really makes too much sense right now. With a rematch, I see it going fairly similarly. Instead of round 1, it seems like they'll pick up at round 6 of this fight. We've seen that Joanna, we already knew, has 5-round capabilities. She has the gas tank to keep going. Even though she was tired by the end of this, Weili Zhang really proved herself this fight with the 5-round fight. She looked fresh, not fresh, but the fresher of the 2 fighters in the 5th round. Had her hands up at the end of the fight, saying that she won. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, hands on her knees, tired, ready to go home, ready to take a rest. Nonetheless, Joanna has a great fighting spirit, super competitive. There's no way she'll take that and just be happy with coming second place. Like we said, probably one of the greatest women's strawweight fighters with 5 title defenses. She definitely deserves her rematch. Definitely put on a great fight against Weili Zhang. Looking at the rankings for the strawweight division, we don't have much past the top 5. Again, number 1 is Jessica Andrade, number 2 Rose Namajunas, number 3 Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez could be a good fight. Joanna Jędrzejczyk at number 4, probably going to jump up to the rightful number 1 contender now after that fight. Joanna did say in her fight against Rose that her knockout loss and her loss afterwards in the rematch was due to outside issues with a lot of personal stuff, a lot of family issues, and a lot of weight cut issues. She wasn't on point with her diet. In this fight, she had no excuses, no reason to have any excuses after putting on such a great fight. And she looked like she could take the power of Weili Zhang a lot better than she took the power of Rose Namajunas. Rose was a lot small, not a lot, but definitely smaller and less powerful than Weili Zhang. Seeing Joanna at her best, at her, not her prime, but in peak condition with a good weight cut, she definitely has what it takes to be right back up there. Be right back up there and go right back for another title shot. She'll have to take a few months off, few months off to recover and get right back into camp, start training again. A rematch for these would be, like I said, very similar. I think if a rematch again goes to 5 rounds, which it probably will, I could see a great trilogy fight for these two, a great women's trilogy fight. Joanna, great experience with rematches. Fought Valentina Shevchenko a few times. She's up there. I could see. I don't see her moving to flyweight, but she definitely could if she wanted to. But I think she's gunning for that strawweight championship. Ever since she's lost it, she's kind of been working her way back up, trying to get there. She's doing her best, and her best is enough. Like I said, it was a split decision. Easily could have went to Joanna, and for fights like that, I think running it back is the perfect plan. If not, Rose Namajunas, maybe. I think Tatiana Suarez is undefeated, undefeated moving forward on a 9-fight win streak. That could definitely be an option for Weili Zhang. Nina Ansaroff, I hope I'm not butchering that name too much. Great fighter on a 4-fight win streak, 4 by knockout. The women's strawweight division is really top heavy. It's kind of the top 5 fighters who are doing the most. We've seen Michelle Waterson put up a great fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I don't see her doing much. She was outclassed. But like I said, nothing besides a rematch really makes sense in this time. Looking at the top 10, the top 15, no name really sticks out besides Joanna Jędrzejczyk and maybe Rose Namajunas. Against a Rose Namajunas, I think Weili Zhang would definitely win that fight. Rose is a great fighter. Last loss to Jessica Andrade, maybe a rematch there. Jessica slammed her on her head. It was a vicious slam where Rose Namajunas was not letting go of a Kimura grip. Jessica Andrade picked her up, slammed her on her head, knockout victory. That would be a great fight. Number 1 and number 2, Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. Winner goes on to fight Weili Zhang while Joanna Jędrzejczyk recovers if she needs that time. Not really sure how bad her injuries were. Mainly just a swollen forehead. See how that recovers. See if she's susceptible to getting swollen again. With that also, it leads to a little bit of a bigger target. It's not much bigger, but with a swollen forehead, those punches that'll miss by an inch are starting to clip you just a little bit. And if she's susceptible to getting swollen like that again, it'll be a rough night for her again against Weili Zhang. But nonetheless, rematch most likely. Great fight, all-time great fight. Probably will go down in the Hall of Fame for one of the greatest fights. Clearly the greatest women's championship fight. With that being said, we'll take one more small break. When we're back, we'll discuss the rest of the fight card. More MMA news. Tony versus Khabib coming up. We'll discuss that. And maybe the plight of the lightweight division, which is seeming to heat up. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Right, and we are back. We just recapped the Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Wei Li Zhang fight and the future of the fighters for both fighters, which, like I said before, seems like a rematch is in the books. Now on to the rest of the fight card. Starting off with Derek Brunson versus Edmen Shahbazyan, which was canceled. Would have been a great fight to see, especially because it is in the middleweight division. Could be a possible matchup for Romero or Israel Adesanya. Probably not Israel Adesanya anytime soon. But Edmen Shahbazyan undefeated. That could be a good fight for Romero, depending on how the fight makers decide to go with that, if they're going to continue and try to remake the Derek Brunson fight. The next fight, Beneil Dariush versus Dakar Close. Good fight. First round, Dariush comes out striking, good striking. Eventually gets a takedown and gets onto Dakar's back. Dakar stands up when Beneil Dariush locks in a body triangle, using his legs to stay attached to Dakar Close. I hope I'm not butchering that name too bad. But the rest of the fight, around 3 minutes of it, Beneil was just on the back of Close, trying to get a rear naked choke, just fighting, just a lot of hand fighting, trying to get that choke for 3 minutes. Did not get it. There was a few times he did get it under the chin, wasn't able to get his other hand free and lock it up. Close showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit, didn't give up, didn't look like he was ready to give up. He was there. He was fighting. He was doing his best, but it was hard for him to do anything with Beneil on his back, pushed up against the fence. It seemed like Beneil was going to tire his legs out. 3 minutes, staying attached. At some points, his hands were let go from Close, so the only thing holding him onto Close was the body triangle. And that's really fatiguing for the legs to hold on so tightly. Just squeezing for 3 minutes, building up lactic acid in the legs, adrenaline dump, and then to keep going after that. That was a story of the first round, with Beneil almost finishing the fight with a few chokes that did get under the chin but not able to finish. Moving into round 2, actually in the corner, Beneil had ice on his legs and his cornerman massaging his legs. It looked like his legs were gone. I didn't think he would be able to do much unless he got close to the ground. With the striking, I thought he would be stiff. Once the fight starts, it starts going like that. Close lands a big shot, hurts Dariush, and Dariush moves back, steps back, tries to get composure while taking heat from Close. Close got a little too reckless, a little too wild. Had his chin up while he was going for the knockout, and Beneil just lands a perfect right hand, puts Close down, and at that point it was the end of the fight. It was great to see Beneil come back from adversity. Beneil had suffered a few knockout losses. Seemed like his chin could be on the way out, but after getting rocked, to keep composure, to cover up, and throw back with such precision, with such precision. It was great to see. At the end of the fight, he calls out Robert. I'm not sure if he really did call out Robert Whittaker. He said he had a call out, and then praised Robert Whittaker for being a great father, saying that he would want to be a great father like him. He's in the lightweight division. I don't think he's calling out Robert Whittaker. I think it was just a slip of the tongue by him. Didn't have a real call out for the future, but definitely established himself to be reckoned as someone in the lightweight division to be worrying about. Not ranked at all. I could see him fighting someone in the lower top 10, especially with a great comeback fight like that. Maybe Barboza or Ally Quinta, or Gregor Gillespie, Oliveira, undefeated Islam Makhachev. I don't think that will happen, but he's definitely working his way back up the lightweight rankings. Moving on to the next fight of Neil Magny versus Li Jingliang. Again, hope I'm not butchering that name too bad. Neil comes out with great stand-up. A lot of volume. He was the bigger fighter again, the lankier, long-range fighter, using great jabs to keep Lee at bay. Lee again going for takedowns, hitting on the break with a right hand, powerful shots. It does get a takedown in his second attempt, but Magny was up quick, didn't let let Lee do much with that takedown, and that kind of seems like the story for the night. A few takedowns by everyone on the card, but no one staying down, establishing dominance in the grappling. Moving on to round 2, more great clinch work by Magny. Punches in the clinch, a few elbows. Great at reversing position, getting off the fence and putting Lee onto the fence and unloading. And great knees to the body. He was throwing a lot of flying knees to the head as well, knees to the body. It seemed like it was a little bit a matter of time before he could end that fight with a flying knee or just body knees and then setting up with the hands. In round 2, Lee did seem to get hurt. Didn't seem to have too much defense besides his head movement, which was it seemed like a pattern of ducking and swaying, bob and weave. No real putting his hands up and defending. He was up against the cage, just moving his head, not really defending with his hands and not really countering back after he would be able to slip a few punches. He was taking a lot of damage. Neil Magny gets a takedown after hurting Lee with knees and punches. Moving on to round 3, more of the same. Magny with a great jab, keeping Lee at distance, keeping him away, using his natural advantage, natural height and reach advantage. Gets a takedown and starts ground and pounding him, holding one of his hands under him and using his other to ground and pound. It was pretty much a clear-cut victory for Neil Magny, who just kept put a pace on Lee and would not let down. Again, it was a comeback fight for him. Something we didn't see too much of happening too much. Sorry, a little flustered. But we seen Magny has great cardio and outclassed and outworked Lee. Moving forward, he has a few options in the welterweight division, but who he called out was Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa, 7th ranked. That could be a really good fight for Magny if he could do some of the same here as just work at outworking Michael Chiesa, keeping him at range. Michael Chiesa a little bit more even when it comes to size, as far as reach and height goes, lankiness rather. But that's a great fight I could see happening soon. Lastly on the card was another welterweight fight of Alex Oliveira versus Max Griffin. Alex Oliveira taking the unanimous decision victory again. A lot of a split decision victory, not unanimous. 28-29, 28-29, and then 28-29 the other way. This was a great fight for both fighters. They both put on a show. No wash in any of these fights besides maybe the Dariush and Magny fight. But regardless, they were all great fights on the card. All of them showing out somehow. Like we said, Israel showing he has great championship heart and great planning. Yoel showing he hasn't slowed down. Weili Zhang showing she has that 5-round capability. Joanna Jędrzejczyk showing she is still up there. She is still someone to be feared. Beneil Dariush showing he has knockout power with a great grappling to fall back on. Neil Magny coming back, winning, very decisive, showing he still has the cardio, showing he still has the heart, showing he still has the tenacity to keep going. And same for both fighters with Alex Oliveira and Max Griffin. Moving on, we will take a short break, and when we are back, we will discuss more UFC news with the Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson fight coming up, and a little bit about the light heavyweight division with John Jones. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. We just recapped the fight card for UFC 248. Great fight card from top to bottom. Besides the canceled fight between Edmund Shabazian and Derek Brunson, it was all a very good card. The champions taking both victories. But now moving on to more MMA news. Starting off with one of the most anticipated fights, Tony Ferguson versus Habib Nurmagomedov. This is the 5th time this fight has been set up. It seems like it's destined for failure. I don't want to say anything and jinx it now, only about 3 weeks away. The 5th time this fight happening. I really, really want to see this fight. Probably one of the hardest fights for Khabib coming up, and a huge fight for Tony Ferguson. He was the champ. In his head, he still is the champ. He walked around with the belt still. Did not lose the belt, lost it, was stripped actually due to inactivity because of injuries, but never was beaten. This is a tough fight for Khabib. With Tony Ferguson, he's so unorthodox, so unpredictable. Like I said, Yoel actually in the fight against Adesanya did this roll, tried to kind of cartwheel kick him. Kick Adesanya. That's something you'd more see from someone like Tony Ferguson, who's unpredictable, who loves to roll. You see him roll out of different situations so often. Against Pettis, he was hurt or rolled out of the way. A lot of times in submission attempts, he rolls out of the way, rolls out of the grappling exchanges. Very unique. The thing with Tony Ferguson is his elbows are very sharp. Not physically sharp, but very good at landing elbows and cutting his opponents up. If you look at his last 5 fights, all 5 fighters, all the 5 of his opponents have walked out with mangled up faces, cut up, bruised. What he did to Cowboy Cerrone, Pettis breaking his hand, he was also a little cut up. With that against Khabib, we've never seen Khabib get cut up and have to fight through that adversity. That's something I think will be a huge game changer. If Tony can land those elbows, cut Khabib up, to see how Khabib deals with that, how he deals with the blood going into his eyes. Most likely, if there is a cut, it'll be somewhere around the eyelids of Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's very interesting, especially with the groundwork of Tony Ferguson. He is very unique in the sense he likes to strike off his back. You see ground and pound a lot, but you never see ground and pound off the back. But Tony Ferguson does. Tony Ferguson is an anomaly when it comes to grappling. He can land that, I can't remember what it's called right now. The choke, the Darce choke, there it is. The Darce choke. From standing, from grappling exchanges, from the clinch. He really mastered that. And that's something I'd like to see Khabib deal with. Tony Ferguson, he could take that fight standing up. He could take that fight to the ground, and he's not lacking in any category. He could submit Khabib. He could submit Khabib. He could outstrike Khabib, knock Khabib out. He could land elbows, have a doctor stoppage. This fight is in New York, and we've seen New York is the last governing body to allow mixed martial arts, and see how that goes. For Khabib, he's going to stick to his usual game plan, push Tony up against the fence, get a takedown from there, and work on his ground and pound, tire him out. That's what Khabib loves to say. I like to tire people. He gets them down, he gets on them, tires them out, ground and pound, and eventually goes for a submission. This is an absolute great fight waiting to happen. This is something we've been waiting for so long. Like I said, 5th time this is about to happen. I really can't wait for this fight. I hope in the next 3 weeks nothing happens. Tony says this is the first time he's sparring in a while, which is so confusing. Tony is such a character. I never know what to believe from him. I never know what not to believe. So I choose to believe everything. He says he's not sparring. I'll agree. He's probably not sparring. He says he was taking auditions for a new coach for a new team. All right, if he says so, I'll agree with him there. Tony is a madman. Whatever he decides to do, it works out for him. He wins fights. He wins fights decisively, and he does it in a crazy manner. Yeah, that's the fight. Probably a possible fight of the year. But moving on to the light heavyweight division, something that was stagnant for a while with Jon Jones just by far so much superior to the rest of the division. He was just light years ahead of everyone. Seemed like he wouldn't be defeated, but in his past few fights, seems like either he's slowing down or the competition is catching up. With the Dominic Reyes fight, almost said Dominic Cruz there, but the Dominic Reyes fight, Dominic Reyes could have arguably won that fight. He won the first 2 rounds, went and lost the championship rounds. Jones definitely won the 4th and the 5th. 3rd was kind of up for grabs, but you couldn't be mad at that fight going either way. A lot of fighters, a lot of pundits had Reyes winning that fight. And a rematch is what Reyes was looking for. Dana White said a rematch is very likely, nothing set in stone. After that fight, though, Jan Blachowicz won by knockout and called Jon Jones out. Jones was in the crowd, stood up, got on the chair, put his hands out as if to say, come on, let's do it. That, again, a great fight, great possible fight for Jon Jones. Jan could go and knock him out. We never know. Jones has a great chin. Jones is great in every aspect of the fight. If I had to pick a weakness for Jon Jones, it is hard to pick a weakness for someone so great, but if I had to, it would be his boxing, his straight hands. Jones is great with the leg kicks, the oblique kicks, a great wrestling background. The one thing he seems to struggle somewhat with is his hands. letting him go. But again, that could be just because he has the reach advantage with his legs and so good at kicking that he just chooses to keep his opponents at bay with his oblique kicks, his round kicks, and then uses wrestling. With Jan could go out and use his hands and knock him out. Dominic Reyes, again, great fight. It could run it back and go get a victory there. I doubt that would happen. Jon Jones just has a great record with rematches. He's great at learning from his previous mistakes, if you can call them mistakes. But undefeated, has that one loss, not really loss, but he was disqualified. So undefeated still, could go on and win, could go on and lose. It's really time to see whether Jon Jones is declining or whether the rest of the division is leveling up with him. Besides that, we've already talked about the rest of the UFC 248 card. Talked about Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. We left out a little thing with Khabib and Tony is the press conference just happened where Tony brought his belt, put it down, and Khabib kicked it. It seems like the bad blood is still there, and that just makes the fight even better. Like I said, that is the fight I'm waiting for. I don't see much else left to talk about on our notes. So thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would really like to ask that you remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out a lot. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for tuning in and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.